Alright, well, welcome to episode 27, The Aftermath. The aftermath of Tiamat's defeat at the Well of Dragons, consigning the Dragon God back to an eternity in the Hells, seems just a blur now. So much happened, and like all such tales, there was no neat ending. You escaped from the devastation of the Well of Dragons, and it was a hazy memory of pain and fear. Ragnar, the fearless dwarven hero, was left buried under the mountain of broken rock and temple ruins. Later, after all the victory celebrations, parades, rewards and inquests were over, the metallic dragons took their tithes, including Ignatius's Staff of Fire and the dragon masks. Hundreds of prisoners remaining in the Well of Dragons were rescued, and thousands of those slain in the Army of the North were mourned. Severin's fall left hundreds of unrepentant cultists still loose in the world, hungering for power and revenge in light of their recent failure. The years that followed were marked by the plots of these petty men in search of petty vengeance. Even after the tithe of the metallic dragons, much of the wealth of the Sword Coast was sitting in the Well of Dragons. Along with dealing with vengeful cultists, you found yourselves helping to return the treasures back to their rightful places, having to deal with con artists, thieves and treasure hunters looking to exploit what had suddenly become the richest dungeon in all of Faerun. Among the cult's former allies, the vindictive chromatic dragons scattered back to their lairs, but only after many of them tried to claim choice pieces of treasure or barrels bulging with gold and gems from the cult's hoard. Furious at having their queen vanquished, the chromatic dragons engaged in sprees of destruction not seen for centuries. Even victorious, the armies of good paid a steep cost in the fight against Tiamat. In addition to soldiers, leaders representing the ruling nobility of countless regions and houses fell in the fight. The situation was not all bleak, however. Stirring instances of generosity and cooperation stood out amidst the darkness, and none of these were greater than the legend of the heroes of Skyreach. For generations, folk looked to the exploits and sacrifices of the heroes for inspiration as they rebuilt and set their sights on better days. In the city of Waterdeep, a huge new temple to the metallic dragon god Bahamut was raised, as agreed between the heroes and the Dragon Council. And every year, on the 5th of Altoriac, the nations of the Sword Coast celebrated Heroes' Day, when the populace would gather and give thanks before statues of an axe-wielding dwarf in spiked armour, a tall robed man of handsome visage, and a halfling astride a broom.
Not a robe, it's a robe.
At various times across the years, strangely, you felt strange things happening with your perception of time. Nothing major, a series of strong déjà vu, birthdays coming too soon, meals being repeated, and so on. And that leads us to the final tales of our heroes and their allies. So, for those of you who survived, I asked you to do a little bit of homework. I don't know who would like to go first and relate what happens to your characters leading up to their deaths, hopefully many years later.
Let's go.
Dave,
go?
or
You go, Mark.
You go. What? Who, do you want to go?
No, do you want to go?
After you, sir. After you, sir. No, after you, sir.
Mark's
Okay.
going to do, really, I'm not prepared, and then pull this list from his sleeve like Anchorman.
You can make it as brief or as lengthy as you like, depending on
Yeah,
what.
I'm not going to
Okay,
read
so
out the
this
whole
is
thing
about-
I wrote.
Okay.
Mine's about a 3 or 4 minute read.
Okay.
Are you willing to listen, gentlemen?
Yeah.
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 There's
That's-
a few contradictions to what our GM said in there.
There's always
Which I
one or
wish you'd
two
have given us
contradictions when you look back at the
bit of-
histories.
Well, they
Yeah.
managed to rescue all the prisoners, but no one carried me out. I'm buried
Ah.
under a mountain of rubble.
Wait.
Let's wait and see.
listen, my friend. Okay, are you ready?
Yes, let's hear the tale of Ignatius.
Okay. Leaving the now devastated Temple of Tiamat, teleporting Ragnar's body along with Mered, Onthor, and Celestial to the forward camp of the armies of the Sword Coast, Ignatius and Mered updated Marshal Ravengard of the incredible outcome. Refusing to let Ragnar's body be dealt with by anyone else, Ignatius whispered a word and froze his friend's corpse, and promising to meet Mered back at the manor, he and Ragnar's still frozen form promptly disappeared. His heart heavy and joyous at the same time from the unlikely victory and what it meant, he delivered the still form to Queen Dagnabet, and using his magic and storytelling, Ignatius showed and told her the incredible story of Ragnar Dragonbane's last stand, impressing upon the Queen the dwarves' key part, his heroic actions and unbelievable tenacity in saving the Sword Coast. Demanding that the dwarf be celebrated in a public dwarven holiday each year and laid to rest in peace in a hero's cairn alongside Bruenor Battlehouse. His final words to the Queen saw Ignatius inform her of the hero's daughter and that she should be sought out and cared for, adored and revered as a daughter of a demigod. And once all was told, Ignatius bowed deeply and laying his hand on his closest friend's spiked armoured shoulder for the last time, with eyes clamped shut to stop the tears, Ignatius the Mysterious whispered a word and disappeared.
Oh.
Returning to Ilvastar Manor, Ignatius leant on his staff, bending down and collecting the dragon mask from the top of the tower, placing it in his pack, and heading down to the mess hall, he greeted Rajol and his niece, telling the incredible story once more. And so, time passed, his heart always heavy, seeming to find little joy in anything. Mered had returned with the armies, and they had spent little time together. Ignatius had never found kinship with the halfling the way he had with Ragnar, but he respected and thought kindly of him. Despite this, a few too many disagreements saw the two part ways. Ignatius knew the truth of this, but he could never tell Master Took of it. The halfling's presence simply pained Ignatius too much. It reminded him of his friend always. Two could never be three again. Whilst approving of and even taking pleasure in the actions Mered took, having the inn renamed Ragnar's Rest in honour of their friend, the donation, generous indeed for the halfling, to Ragnar's statue in Hillock Court outside Castle Waterdeep, Ignatius could still find nothing but pain when he was around. On top of the halfling's constant reminders of how Ignatius had lost his family hurt him deeply. Not that he cared for the loss of his evil father one jot, but rather the thought of being cheated and deceived by him all those years left the prideful Ignatius full of shame. And memories of his lost sister and mother could not be borne lightly in the constant jests from the halfling, ever. And so on the day Merad left Ilvastar, with a great deal more than half of the riches from the vault, and never returned, Ignatius was not angry or scornful or sad, but was grateful. Peace started to return to his troubled soul. Ignatius kept Ilvastar as his home, but in the following months returned only occasionally. It was time to honour the agreements made. Returning to the Council of Dragons in the Nether Mountains, Ignatius graciously gave up the Staff of Fire to the bronze dragon Tasmikella, thanking her for its use. Ignatius then bowed before the great golden dragon Protantha, presenting him with the dragon masks as promised. Before he left, Ignatius, who in their quest to save the Sword Coast had been singularly focused on the matter at hand, had now begun to understand something he knew he had felt all along, but not allowing it to stand in the way of his path to victory, had ignored. Bowing and muttering his farewells, Ignatius approached Lady Elia, the great silver dragon, Otilia Karnos, and kneeling before her, staring up into her eyes, he asked her to marry him. Smiling down at the powerful sorcerer with kindness, Elia simply stated, "My dear Ignatius, I have other deeds to perform, but I wish you well." Once more feeling the weight of sorrow descend upon his heart, Ignatius nodded and vanished. Ignatius remained at Ilvastar, Rajal and Alithia, his family. He spent the following year utilising his creative talents to pen and compose a dramatic opera like the world had never seen. Ragnar il Magnifico e la Césaire di Tiamat, Ragnar the Magnificent and the Rise of Tiamat. The 26-act epic contained astonishing arias, overtures, acting, dance and ballet, and toured stages across the land with breathtaking sets of scenery and costumes. It was an instant hit, and its star, Elvish Pressleaf, became famous beyond his wildest dreams. Ignatius spent his late 20s and early 30s travelling throughout the Sword Coast and beyond throughout all of Faerun, helping those who could not help themselves and dedicating himself to righting wrongs and delivering the world from evil. His power grew beyond compare in all the lands, and mighty was his word. A gentle whisper from Ignatius was death to those he wished, and a saviour to those he protected. Power and wisdom were synonymous with his name. No longer Ignatius, the mysterious magician of Mirabar, but simply Ignatius. And so, on one fateful night, returning to Ilvastar, following a journey to the wastes of the Desert of Desolation, where he had easily defeated the millennium-dead wizard Martek in his tomb, Ignatius landed once more, as he had hundreds of times atop his sorcerer's tower, and froze. Trying his hardest to move, he could not. A panic rising in his chest, he looked across the dusty stones of the tower top and saw her. "You," he whispered. "Thought I'd forget, did you, almighty Ignatius? Don't bother with any of your spells," she said, waving a small pendant holding a glowing cube at its end. "That's right. Think you're the only one who can get their hands on a cube of force? I've been watching you for years. I've learned your secrets, watched your victories, and understood your power. And I've made note, O mighty one. Well, you're not so mighty now." Ignatius's mind reeled. The cube of force kept power out, not in. This was unheard of. As if reading his mind, the Viper spoke again. "Bastarkan, you don't know him. He was a flying red wizard of Thay, one of the few who remained and fled following your miracle at the temple. He hates you, you know. It really didn't take much for me to find and convince him to help me. It took him 15 years, but he did it." Waving the pendant once more, she continued. "This cube of force has been changed. It took old Bastarkan his whole life, literally, but finally he did it. This cube of force keeps your power in, Ignatius. You are trapped, and no mighty spell or physical action can escape. You're finally mine." The Viper smiled as she slowly drew a wicked blade and approached him, her finger caressing its deadly tip as she did so. Unable to move, his mind casting deadly spell after deadly spell with no effect whatsoever, fear gripping in his chest as she grew slowly and steadily closer. He felt it before he saw it, a whooshing wind caressing his cheeks, his hair wilder than usual in its grasp. And then she was there, 130-foot wingspan buffeting him as she rose above the tower, huge scales glinting silver in the moonlight. Roaring above the noise, Ignatius, and indeed most of Waterdeep, heard her booming voice. "Hands off, bitch! He's mine!" And with a flick of her huge neck and a snap of her gargantuan jaws, the Viper was gone. Changing into a human form even as she landed in front of the now kneeling and freed Ignatius, Elias smiled down at him, and he gasped for breath. Raising his chin with her delicate silver-skinned hand, Ignatius stared uncomprehendingly up into her glowing eyes. "My deeds are now all complete, Ignatius, dear one. Ask me again." And that is the story of Ignatius. He lived happily ever after with his wife, Elia.
Very good.
Wow.
You got a girlfriend.
Very good. And
Alright,
Ignatius's final days were ones, I presume, of peace and happiness, and he passed
They
away
were indeed
happy and content.
happy with yes,
He
happy
got
and content.
shagged to death by
Died with a smile on his face.
Yeah.
Wow. A fitting end to his tale.
I heard
Mered.
Ragnar liked his opera.
Yes, thank you.
Ragnar il Magnifico, la Sesia di Tiamat.
I'm not sure Ragnar would have sat through all 26 hours or whatever, 26 acts.
I chose 26 acts because there was 26 sessions.
Ah, very good. Mered,
That's
what happened to
Yes.
our halfling rogue cleric?
well. I won't read out everything that I told because you haven't got half an hour to sit through it. I've written. It was long.
Mine took long enough. Dave's is brilliant though. Really good. Well worth a read.
I'll have to send them to you, Rich. Yes, after the fight, much merriment, much enjoyment, much carousing, and much squirreling away with as much of the horde as he could get his hands on. But as Ignatius said, there was tension there between Merid and Ignatius. Few too many barbed jokes about dragons, and it drifted away apart slowly. It wasn't a bad parting, but yes, Merid did move out of the manor. The last Ignatius heard about Merid was assassination attempt on his life, which was unfortunately successful, and he could only guess that the Viper had claimed one of her kills. But actually, unbeknownst to everybody, Merid had faked his death using his powers of illusion and trickery. And the only way that he knew how was just to lie about it. And but the poison that the Viper had used on the blade laid Merid low and left him really weak. And during some of these fever dreams, the gods came to him and offered him a choice, saying you can either wake from this fevered sleep whole again and become a middling thief, an intermediate operative of the Zentrim, and ultimately be forgotten, or you can do a special task for us. You will remain weak. You'll never quite gain your full physical faculties again. And Mary thought about all the powers the gods had given him and everything he owed to them, and he chose the latter. He didn't want to fade out as just another thief. He wanted to do something special. He wanted to help his gods and try and bring them back to power on the material plane. So he recovered semi-anonymously. At least he was still dead in the eyes of everybody above ground. But he spent his remaining years teaching the young street kids the art of the pickpocket and the lockpick, without telling them the real identity. And every once in a while, a special chosen one, he'd set him aside and teach them the mysteries of his shadowy gods, and building up his little temple under the streets of Waterdeep. Just his hands in this and that, just gently pulling some strings. And yes, that's how he spent his remaining days. But on his last night on this earth as a very, very old halfling, the very, very talented young thief was after stealing something from Merid's chambers while he was asleep, and managed to get all the way in. And it was then that Merid knew this was a special one to take over his mantle. And the gods appeared to him, and Merid breathed his last breath, knowing that his legacy was passed on. And who knows? Gods might appear again. And that was it.
Wow.
Yes.
Very good. I really like the way that Merid and Ignatius had a strained relationship after everything that had happened.
Yeah. That in one.
Ragnar was the glue that held
He
us
was,
together.
yeah, and they couldn't like. I love that thing that Mark said, that two could never be three again, and it was never the same afterwards.
That was right.
So, as the tale of our heroes draws to an end, I just want to update you. Obviously, you met many interesting and strange characters during your adventures. I just wanted to update you on what happened to some of them after the defeat of Tiamat. Ontharr Froom was sadly killed during the battle to escape the Well of Dragons. He died alongside his paladins trying to rescue the lives of prisoners bound for the sacrificial pits that were powering the ritual. The Osin Olanthar, however, survived the final battle, but retired from public life shortly thereafter. So much blood and death had left their mark on him, and for the remainder of his days he had the look of a haunted man. Jamna Gleamsilver remained a thorn in Mered's side for many years. Jealous of his success and rise, she tried to undermine him at every opportunity until he disappeared. But she came to an unexplained end one day, her body found dead in her own bed, a single violet rose left on her chest. Lady Romalia Haventree's miraculous survival and reappearance was warmly welcomed by the citizens of Waterdeep. she became the new Open Lord and passed on the charge of the Harpers to others. She then declared her love for Lady Laeral Silverhand, and the two of them were married with great pomp and circumstance. Pressleaf lived with the giants of Aldervelt for several years, learning their ways. The name of Melsonga was uttered with revered awe amongst the Jotun tribes of the north. Years later he reappeared in Mirabar, having ditched his old performing persona, and became a storyteller of great renown. But his most famous tale was that of the heroes of Skyreach, which he performed in a 26-act opera for many years. Alpa Gulfscream took the opportunity of the chaos in the years following the war to disappear, along with much of the Waterdeep Centaurium's wealth. He eventually began a trading company that dealt exclusively with the scaly death tribe of lizard folk that was led by an unusually friendly lizard man named Snapjaw.
Snapjaw.
Marla Fogdower became one of the most famous smiths in all of the Sword Coast. Known as the creator of the famous Dragonclaw axe and blade, she was welcomed by kings and queens alike and commissioned to make many wondrous weapons. Shortly after the battle at the Well of Dragons, however, she discovered herself pregnant. The child was a strong boy with spiky ginger hair.
Oh my god. Brilliant.
Kirill Copperhearth died after a long and successful life as proprietor of the Bearded Mermaid, which later became Ragnar's Rest, one of the most successful inns in Waterdeep. Brett Cockcroft disappeared shortly after the war. No one knew where or why. All he left behind was a single embroidered handkerchief with the inscription, BC for RD forever.
Aww.
Rajal Westbrook retired once the heroes of Skyreach returned to Waterdeep, feeling his debt to them was paid. He lived for many years but never married, and finally realised his dream of opening Rajal Westbrook's home for orphaned children. Every year, on the 4th day of the month of Hammer, he returned to Ulverstar Manor and could be seen silently weeping over an old, unmarked grave.
Oh, Dorica.
Dre Hopeborn killed himself shortly before the attack on the Well of Dragons. His hunger for the blade he had lost never left him, and he couldn't face life without it.
Oh, wow.
And finally, Gilran Zossenheim eventually returned to Waterdeep, and using the funds left to her by her father, she purchased the Bearded Mermaid Tavern with Mered's help and renamed it Ragnar's Rest. The Rest became a franchise, opening up tap rooms in the docks of Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter, each exhibiting some impressive relic from the war. Many years later, as she passed middle age, Gilran journeyed to the ruins of the Well of Dragons. Weeks later she returned, and in her possession was a black iron helmet with a single large spike on top. She took it to Mithril Hall, where it was laid as the prized possession of the Underhall Museum. It was no longer referred to as the Gutbuster Helm of Thibbledorf Pwent. Now it was only known as the religious relic, the Drakebuster Helm of Ragnar Dragonbane. So I thought it might be fun, and tell me if this isn't, and we can skip it as we go through. Just to listen back to a couple of highlights from the campaign that I picked out. There's only a couple of them are longer than about 30 seconds, but hopefully it will bring back some interesting memories.
This will be funny, man.
So, these are going to go in chronological order. So after the tournament at Elturel, where you first met each other, shortly after leaving the city, in Baldur's Gate you arrived, and Dre showed that his turn to the dark side began very early in the campaign. Okay, the half-elf starts cowering and feeling his way around in the dark. You can see him, he can't see a thing, and you can see him like, Thog, I'm scared, Thog, what's going on? Don't you worry, my love, I'll sort this out. Who's there? And you can see him feeling around for a weapon. He's like staggering over to a cupboard, banging into it. He picks up a sword.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll now use as an action was it abjure enemy, which creates fear in anybody within 60 feet.
Right. Your enemy.
Fucking Freddy Krueger.
I'm gonna scare the racist out of this person.
So there's Dre. If you remember casting his revenge spells on the poor half-orc tattooist.
I'm gonna scare the racism out of him. Fighting the good fight.
On the caravan journey north from Baldur's Gate, the true villain of Mered's story was revealed. So what do they call this?
Okay.
Right, I'm gonna light this torch.
Okay.
Pass them over the mushrooms right outside the door of the tent. See if.
Okay. As you pass the torch over the mushrooms, the terrible screaming starts again. The ones immediately in front of the tent do start to blacken and twist. The others are already growing even taller. They're about 4 inches tall now. And can you make a Constitution save, please, Mered?
Probably not, but I'll give it a go.
Might be worth a shot.
Oh, I've rolled it twice. They both failed.
Let them grow. So we can walk under them once they've grown.
Okay, you are come after burning these things and hearing the screaming. The noise is extremely distressing, and you're overcome with feelings of grief and remorse, just triggered by hearing these thousands of tiny cries of pain and death. There we go.
Brilliant.
Eventually arriving at Waterdeep, you got embroiled in the politics of the Zentarium, and a certain person made his first appearance.
See if we can.
As you're finishing up your breakfast, you feel a presence behind you, and you turn, and there's a tall man standing behind you in bright purple robes. He has a long, drooping moustache with beads at the end, long hair. There's a glint in his eye, and he's incredibly good-looking. You've not seen anyone quite this striking in quite some time. He looks down at you. Ah, there you are, my friends! First appearance of
Brilliant.
Mr. Cockcroft. In one of my favourite sessions, if I can find it. You journeyed north past Waterdeep into the Mere of Dead Men, where you befriended a lizard folk named Snapjaw and led his tribe in a battle. And then through the magic portal beneath Castle Neritar, secrets were revealed.
I remember that fight.
She suddenly beams widely. Nonic, my sweet, it has been so long. It is good to see you again. Reynard smiles awkwardly. Hello, Mother, he says in an unfamiliar voice. It's good to be home. There's a shimmer, and his appearance changes from top to bottom. He's dressed in leather armour. He's about twice the age he used to be. And he's standing there smiling at you, just flipping the dagger that Ragnar gave him in his hands.
Yeah, I'll be having that fucking back.
I'm having that fucking back.
But there was more to come. She points a wand at Ignatius, and Ignatius's eyes suddenly become pitch black. Your vision clouds over, and then suddenly becomes clear. You're suddenly looking back to a classroom long ago. There's Master Smatter handing out assignments, and there's your friends that you're arguing with. There's a flash of lightning, and your friend is thrown backwards across the classroom. Yet, wait, no, not lightning. A flash of cold, a flash of ice. You look down at the skin on your forearm. The light glisten of scales can be seen in the light from the candelabras, but it seems different now. Where before it was tinged with bronze, it is now coloured with a cold ice colour.
This cannot be. My father is Abelbright.
You remember with a sudden clarity the recurring vivid dreams and prophecies that originally sent you to Elturel. The huge metallic face you saw as bronze now seems to be covered in white scales, and it's sneering. And then suddenly you remember being back in the Mere of the Dead, fighting the weed that walks. You remember how your lightning spell did damage the beast, and you weren't expecting it. But then it wasn't lightning, it was a bolt of ice. Your vision clears, and you are back in the room. I'm going to share something with you, Mark.
Oh
my god, you're one of them!
One of them. You managed to sneak onto Skyreach, and Ignatius proved his worth against many foes, wiping them out in huge blasts of magic. You killed Resmir the Black and crashed Skyreach into a mountain range. Okay, as Blagothcus falls forwards onto his face, the world suddenly becomes unstable. A shrieking, disembodied female voice screams, "No! You have taken him from me! Now I will take this place from you!" The floor tilts alarmingly, and you grab onto anything to stop yourself sliding. A second later it corrects itself, then tips at an insane angle in the other direction. The castle is out of control. I would like everybody to make a dexterity saving throw, please. Are you alright for me to carry on with these?
Yeah.
they're fun.
There's only a few more. You returned to Waterdeep and were given new missions by the council. On one of the adventures, you surprised me. You really surprised me for the very first time. This is from episode 5 of Rise of Tiamat, Dragons, Devils, and the Deep Blue Sea.
Okay. Did you hear what I whispered to Ragnar?
No, didn't see it.
Not a whisper. It was in. I leant over to him and said, "Fancy a little?"
Oh yes, I did. Yes.
And he said yes, and I said, "Oh, wonderful. Dimension door."
Okay.
Ragnar and I will disappear and appear on the back of the white dragon behind Lady Talus.
We thought we were screwed.
I was not expecting that.
We thought, oh god, dragon.
On returning to Waterdeep, you found yourselves in council again, but this time things did not go quite as smoothly, as Ignatius summarised the group's accomplishments to the council.
We left for the tomb of Didarius, where we killed the dwarven worm speaker Varam the White, and then on exiting the tomb, we were confronted by my sister Lady Talus of the cult, of whom we captured, and we just happened to kill her white dragon. We returned with our hierarchy.
As you say that, one of the chairs falls over, and Lord Marshal Alder Ravensguard of the Flaming Fist stands up. I am sorry to interrupt your tale, Master Ignatius, but I have to inform the council that Lady Talus has escaped.
Well, thank you for saying that. I was in the middle of speaking. Please sit down. My eyes are glowing white.
Make a straight charisma check.
Straight charisma check.
Mm-hmm.
What? Just
Well, you really need to look cool. You're
He stays standing, plants his fists on the table. I know this isn't the news you wanted to hear, and as he's about to speak, Conrad Brawnanville the dwarf stands up as well. You killed Faram! You should have brought him back and made an example of him in a court of dwarven law!
Okay, I'm going to levitate myself and crack my thing down, and I'm going to use shatter at the top of the council chamber, creating a huge noise. Let me tick them off.
Okay.
My experience is best.
Oh, that bitch, take them off. Especially in a crowded room.
It's going well.
Sit down! I am Ignatius the Mysterious, magician of Mirabar. Do not take me for some cheap conjurer of tricks. Heed my words!
Do not take me for some conjurer of cheap tricks.
Everyone looks
As I was
alarmed
saying,
and looks up at you.
as I was saying,
Hold on. Turn Hornblade stands up and passes a hand in front of his face. I need you to make a wisdom saving throw, please, Ignatius.
Can I react to that?
Okay. You feel your magic start to seep away and slowly start to sink to the floor.
Oh, I love it when the GM doesn't even let you roll. Okay. So, I say, fine. And I just go sit down. Continue with your politics. I'm going to leave the chamber.
So, I remember that because I was desperately thinking, oh my god, you fucked everything up that I had planned. It was very funny.
So the council against the party.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But that does
Action,
bring
not
us
words.
to possibly one of my favourite moments. I know this was one of Mark's as well, because we did discuss it. At the Council of Dragons, the normally taciturn Ragnar surprised us all.
Absolutely.
All right, Ragnar steps forward.
Yes, Ragnar. Do you have your answer for me?
I do. Every race in these lands, these beautiful lands, at some point has been wronged by another.
She just stares at you out the darkness, not saying anything.
My own kind has been wronged many times over. But I do not ask for an apology for what is once past. And he takes his axe out and chucks it on the floor. I fight this dragon cult, not for fame or fortune or any gain, because it's the right thing to do. I do not ask for an apology for such attritions against my people over the years. I do it because it's right. I defend the weak because they can't defend themselves. I am blessed with the strength, and all I have is that axe. I don't possess your wisdom, your powers, your magic, but still I stand, and I fight this dragon cult with my companions. And we do not ask for rewards.
It's all about me.
Because it's right. It's the right thing to do. I will get your apology if this is what you need. I will seek out the Queen.
As you look up at her, there's almost like a glint in the darkness. Like a diamond has formed at the corner of her eye. And you realise it's a tear dripping down her cheek. You can take... So there we go. Still one of the best speeches, Rich.
That's great.
However, I have to say that Ragnar's pledge to defend the weak Didn't last too long. In fact, in the very next episode, episode 10, he stumbled in his quest to be good as the heroes investigated the reports of dragon attacks in the misty forest.
What? That was just...
Yes, Kayla. Yes.
Keep her forefront in your mind.
He looks up at you and he kind of grabs onto the front of your robes. He's on his knees and he looks up at you, his eyes almost pleading for forgiveness. Yes, for Kayla.
I put my arm, approach from behind, put my arm
Up his arse.
get him in a headlock using my strength,
God!
and then slip my venom dagger between his third and fourth rib, assassin style, and say,
Oh my God!
"Coward."
Brutal Ragnar.
Wow. But in the very next episode, episode 11, come not between the dragon and his wrath, Ignatius, having tracked down the green dragon Tooth, decided to explore on his own and ended up in a massive solo battle to the death with the green dragon.
This is so tense. I'm sweating like a motherfucker.
He's gonna swoop down
This is like a raid at EQ2.
above you, and he's gonna try and bite and claw you.
Okay.
You cannot defeat us. Okay, first he tries to bite.
Already turned your pet into worm food.
28
Ow.
will be a hit.
He's out.
And then he'll claw you twice. Hits.
Shit.
God, how's he hitting you? You've got like Uber decks.
I know. I got on a class 22. You must be having good rolls.
Another
Shit,
hit.
mate.
Yeah, I rolled.
Dude.
I rolled
Yeah,
to
very
hit.
good.
I rolled a 28, a 24, and a 25, including the bonuses.
Yeah, they get plus 11.
Oh.
He's got plus 11 to hit.
Okay,
You better.
he
finish
leaps
him.
suddenly out of the fog. This huge head comes and it snaps, lays onto your shoulder, and these claws come down and drag you and pull you into the thorns of the wall surrounding you, causing you to impale yourself on the thorns. You're in
Yeah.
agony. With that, it's your turn. It could
I'm
be your
gonna leave it
last
there.
turn. Let's see what happens.
Is it dimension door or is he going all the way?
I think we'll have a 4th level cone of cold.
Oh my god!
What are you get out of there? You're gonna die.
I'll just pause it. He had 10 hit points left at this point.
Okay,
He's
so
gonna eat you, dude. Get out
Oh
of there.
my god.
here we go.
He might
Come on.
do him. If he fails his save throw, I think Mark will
He's,
do him.
he's used all his save. Is a thing he saves, I think.
Yeah. Oh fuck!
Okay, so there's another 1d8 on top of this because it's a 4th
Okay.
level.
Oh, he's done him!
Suddenly, with the last attack left in him.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Look at
Um,
that with the last attack.
Didn't we?
we moved on to another adventure soon after that, the Frozen North, to recover the fallen castle Skyreach, and I, as Dungeon Master, had to make my first apology for what I was about to unleash upon you. Guys, I need to apologise for what's about to happen. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I was a little bit drunk when I came up with this.
Yes! This is brilliant!
So, anyway.
Okay,
Um,
I was going to be singing.
Using my halfling nimbleness and the ability to move through people of my size or smaller, I'm going to go to just make a beeline for a table with
okay.
some empty spaces and try and hog as many
You
as
managed to
possible.
find a small table that you can all get round. It's not too far from the stage.
Okay.
And a dwarf steps out onto the stage. He's wearing a blue brocade doublet and pants. His beard has been perfectly combed and oiled. And he rungs up and he rings a bell, and the sound all dies down. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honour to present tonight's entertainment. You know him very well. It is my great honour to present to you the great Elvis Presley. He bows and he backs, and then you see your old friend step out onto the stage. He's put on a lot of weight since you last saw him, though he's still wearing his old leather armour that he wore as a guide, which has been bleached white to offer camouflage in the snow. It's very tight-fitting, though it's since been upgraded and it's decorated with cheap jewels and gems that have been studded into it.
Fantastic!
The previously large collars of the armour, which he used to pull up and cover his face in the biting winds of the north, have been extended, and it's these huge flared collars. And you also notice he's now wearing two large pairs of boots that seem to be made of some kind of suede or leather. They're deep blue in colour.
Oh, yes!
He comes up, he's got a lute strung around his shoulders.
Oh God!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. My name is Elvis Presley, and this is Ain't Nothing But a Hellhound. Like I said, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
It was excellent.
Things didn't always go your way. After recovering Skyreach, you returned to Waterdeep, but found yourself the target of an attack by the Cult of the Dragon. But it was merely a diversion. Most of the recruits are in the courtyard. There's obviously been a big battle in the courtyard.
Any signs of a dragon?
Look for familiar faces.
There are several familiar faces. You see Franklin and Gerbo lying on the ground,
Dead.
Dead, next to bodies of dragon wings.
Any signs of a dragon?
There's no signs of any fires or any attack on the walls themselves, other than the gate.
Meat.
Run inside, look for Dorica and...
You run inside, you find Ragel sitting in the corner of the common room. Tears streaking his face as he holds Dorica's form in his arms.
No, Dorica.
I couldn't stop them. Yeah!
Keanu Reeves fired the pistol into the air in point break. No!
Look cool. That was cool.
Brutal.
Cool.
It's just a couple,
that was.
just a couple of these left. A few episodes later, as you began preparing your final parts of your quest, Ragnar finally received his Dragonclaw axe, and much more besides in another appearance by a favourite character. You like?
Thank you very much, old.
You tell everyone about Marla.
Oh, I will. Marla, they were real of the tales of Ragnar and the dragon axe that Marla made him.
She does a little jig from side to side.
I'll give her a little peck
Excellent
on the
work,
cheek. I'll give her a
old
little
lady.
peck on the cheek.
Oh, Marla still has heat of forge inside. You're coming back?
Yes.
She reaches down and grabs you with the three fingers on her right hand.
Does she cup his ball?
What was the name of that clothing shop, Neil?
Cromdoor's Outfitters.
I'll see you at Cromdoors, Ragnar. And head out the door.
Okay. Well, she drags you in to her back room through some leather strips. There's a bed of hot coals laid out on the floor.
A bed of sex.
And she proceeds to show you that despite only having 7 fingers and 3 teeth and 1 ear,
Gummy.
she is very dexterous and enjoys the feeling of heat. At one point, you scream in agony as she brands you on your chest with a mark, with a steaming red-hot brands that she whips out of a nearby fire and plunges down onto your chest. You now have a big M branded over your left nipple.
Oh wow,
That was
that
just
was mad.
bang
Like,
in the
she had
end.
his baby. She had his baby.
And finally, after many more adventures that saw you negotiating sundial hedge mazes, journeying to the highest height in the deepest dark, finally defeating the vampire dwarf Thibbledorf Pwent, and removing the curse of Hazarorn from Dre, the final reckoning could be put off no longer. Ignatius, you're up.
By the divine
Holy
word of
crap.
God. It took a divine word of God to kill my character.
I am gonna. Oh fuck! What do I do?
You can see, you can
Just go
almost,
out in a blaze of glory.
you can almost hear the Mark's brain working at this part, can't you?
Hit it one last
I
time.
am gonna lob a chromatic orbiter. I'm gonna drop my thing.
Okay.
Use my bonus
What's the range on chromatical?
to lob a chromatic orb. 90 feet.
Okay. You're further than that away. You'll need to move.
I'll move underneath her and
Okay.
up 10 foot.
Okay.
Not completely underneath her, just to the side. But yeah.
Okay. I'll move you round there so you're not directly in line.
Okay. Have I got her targeted? Yeah. Here it goes. What level is it? Yeah, 3rd level.
Hits. Okay. What's the chromatic orb do? Do you roll for it?
Thunder.
Thunder.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Elemental will probably be resisted by everything. What? Yeah, finally!
Holy crap! So it was that you were finally successful in your missions.
Did you think?
Amazing.
Did you think when Mark said thunder, it's like, oh shit, yeah, thunder.
Yeah, I didn't realise that she only had 27 hit points left until he after he rolled the damage.
My God. It was
Dirty, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was-
Couldn't have done it without Ragnar whittling her down.
So,
Man, he went down. He was like a Chumbawamba song, Ragnar was. I get down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down.
we're almost done for this session. I do have some stats to share with you. This is taking into account the entire campaign from the very first session. This is... I'm trying to share it and it's not sharing, so I'll drop it onto your... this is the overall ranking stats. And I'll also share... I'm not going to go through them all now, but just in case you wanted to look through them, the everyone's individual stats for the campaign as well. I don't know if... Are they popping up at all?
Yeah, they've come up.
So if you're into your stats, that's some information for you there. Ragnar's best crit. Ragnar had the best criticals. 7.62% of his to hit attacks were criticals. It should only be 5% on average over a whole campaign. That's pretty good.
That's mad.
Where's the most pockets picked?
That's not there, I'm afraid. It was only about 2, but I think you got that one, Mohamed.
I got most attacks.
That one in the last fight.
Most misses, Ignatius the Mysterious.
Yeah, he wasn't a melee person.
No. Ragnar Dragonbane, 506 times. He was the most attacked character. I reckon 500 of those were bites.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the very end, if anyone's got any questions, out of character questions you want to know about anything that happened, or
Yeah, I remember I accidentally stumbled across it while reading wiki stuff. Is it when we're in that caravan with the following those cultists? And one of them died, and we were accused of killing her. It was Jamna, wasn't it?
It was Jamna that had killed it.
Yeah. Shit, too far.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Most damage to friends, Ignatius the Mysterious.
Sorry. That's only because you were standing there half the time going, "Come on, do it!
Okay, so let's move on to the final part of this evening. Ragnar's eyes suddenly flicker open. The last thing you remember is the 5 heads of the Dragon Queen arching above you and uttering a divine word. But now you find yourself awoken, as if from a deep dream, on the floor of a large airy room with polished oak floors and a high vaulted ceiling. On either side of you lie Ignatius and Merid. Both look aged and old to your eyes. Then they both suddenly awaken and sit up. The walls of the chamber are lined with shelves that hold a huge number of books, as well as an array of timekeeping devices, hourglasses, sundials, candles, and so on. Tall windows let in bright sunlight and show a view of wild mountain peaks beyond. As you look around you, you notice signs of fighting. Some shelves are cloven in two by enormous slashes, others are scorched and blackened as if exposed to an intense fire. Torn pages litter the floor and shattered glass twinkles among the piles of sand that used to be hourglasses, while the slumped forms of humanoids wearing blood-stained robes lie against walls or sprawl on the floor. An incredibly tall, well-muscled humanoid with lustrous green skin is sitting on the floor within a ring of arcane sigils. He is clutching at a deep wound in his side, and torn white wings hang limply from his back. In a deep, resonant voice, the being speaks. I am Amgel, a planetar of Ogma, and I would like to know the last thing you all remember. He looks at you.
Wow.
Hey.
Are you going to answer him?
What, the last thing my character remembers?
Yeah.
I don't know, I suppose it was... I don't know. Looking back at your companions for one last time before you go into the fray. Both.
He looks at you all. I have used chronomancy, a highly forbidden magic, to rip you from the very moments of your death. I desperately needed help from legendary heroes, but the magic is so incredibly dangerous that even having mortals know it exists is incredibly risky. The spell I am channeling is only keeping you in the current time frame temporarily. When it inevitably fails, you will be sent back to your correct time, where you will die the deaths appointed to you. This is completely unavoidable, I'm afraid. You are not the only doomed ones in this scenario. My use of chronomancy is strictly forbidden even to one as powerful as myself. For my transgressions, I will be completely destroyed, without even the promise of an afterlife. Rather than save yourselves, I ask that you help me to save the entire world. In return, before I am destroyed, I will grant you one final boon. Perhaps you would like me to bless one of your descendants. Perhaps a huge statue in your honor. You decide. But whatever you choose, the multiverse needs your aid. And we will end the session there.
Whoa.
One last time into the fray!